Welcome to the wildly wonderful and whimsical, colorful world of Tularosa flowers. We're proud to have been named one of North America's top 50 wedding floral designers by Florist Review magazine. I'm Dawn Weisberg, owner and creative director of Tularosa Flowers. Our work has been described as wildly colorful and whimsical, a wild frolic through a flower wonderland. And that is how I like to think of our work. We definitely have a maximalist approach when it comes to floral and event design. We love to layer texture, color, and pattern all together to create something that is multi-leveled, interesting, and very personal to each of our couples. We're so pleased to have been chosen as one of Mayish's design stars this year. Today we're going to be talking all about urns. Now, urns are one of my absolute favorite things to design. And there's something that I feel gets a little bit overlooked in a lot of modern floral design, but it's one of those things that really adds so much to your aesthetic on a wedding day. It's also something that can be moved from ceremony to reception fairly easily, depending on the size of your urns. And I'm going to just go ahead and admit that I have an obsession with urns, and this is only a small part of my collection. Now, one of the things that you have to think about when you're designing with urns is the size, because that's really going to be dictated by your client's budget and also by the scale of the venue that you're working at. So we mostly do weddings, and we've done weddings in all different kinds of environments. And that's what you want to think about when you're picking the urn for your wedding. And a lot of times we will take urns that come to us painted in a certain way and repaint them as well. So it's not something that has to be static in your inventory. You can change it up, change it to suit a particular venue or a particular design that you're doing. So for an example where I have actually painted an urn, these came to me black, loved them when they were black. I've also painted them like a white gray and now into a terracotta. So, you can be as creative as you want to be with your urns. This size is the smallest size that we use. This can work on a pedestal at the entrance to an aisle. It's great also if you put it on a short pedestal in the center of a round table for an escort card display. But you really want to keep in mind in terms of your budget how big the urn is, because again, it's going to dictate how much product you have to use to fill it. So this I would consider to be our small size. This is our medium size. And then this would be our large size. And this one, which granted we don't use that often, would be our extra large urn. So when do you use an urn this size, right? Because this is a pretty grande urn. Sometimes you're going to be at a venue like a museum or a giant ballroom or a very grand hotel. And in that situation, if you use an urn this size or something of this size, it's really going to look small in comparison with the scale of the venue. And you always want your florals to be the right size for the environment that they're in, which is why if you have, for instance, urns at the entrance to a museum and the museum door is 10 feet tall, you want a giant urn that is going to be in the right scale to the place that you're putting it. Right now in the flower world, we're definitely having conversations about sustainability. And sustainability is incredibly important. In fact, my husband and I moved away from Los Angeles to a small town to be permaculture farmers, which is a kind of organic farming that's very holistic. And our entire floral studio is actually run on solar, and we compost everything on site that we use, including cardboard waste, because you can actually do sheet mulching with cardboard that helps to block weeds and enrich the soil. But we are not entirely foam free. And why is that? I think it's important to acknowledge that you have to do the steps that you can in your business. Not only does your business need to be sustainable environmentally, it also has to be sustainable economically for you. So for where we live, it's very hard to transport things in water. We're up in the mountains where it's a very bumpy road. And also, so many of our clients want their ceremony flowers to be repurposed to reception. that it makes working entirely in water quite difficult. Although we have on some very large scale weddings gone entirely foam free when that was important to the bride. We once did a 60-foot aisle all in water, but it was a challenge. And it definitely takes more time. And you know, it also depends on where you live. In some parts of the country or the world, you can work only in chicken wire and not have to have a water source. But where we are in Southern California, it's really important that the flowers be hydrated in order to last the whole day of the wedding. So with urns, they offer you an opportunity to use both foam-free mechanics and foam mechanics as well. What I like to use is in the urn itself, these mâchés. These are actually recycled paper product. They are biodegradable. They're called mâché because they're made out of paper mache. They're getting harder to find. I think the supplier might have gone out of business, but you can find them still at floral supply places. So those can fit down into an urn. The thing that makes it a little bit more challenging when using something like this with chicken wire and a container set in like this is that you have to take into consideration your stem length. Because when you're putting something deep into an urn, you're going to need more stem length in order to be able to get your flowers to come out or come up high. Whereas if you're using something like a loamy dish set on top of your urn, you're gonna be able to build your foam up and then place stems into it and get more height out of it. I really think whichever you feel more comfortable with, the way that you're working, you know, it's up to you. I don't believe in a shaming of people, you know, and where they're at in their business. I think we each try to do whatever we can to be sustainable, and that looks different for everybody. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the product that we're going to be using today to create our urns. I've got these incredible Moab roses from Mayesh. In fact, all of our flowers today are provided by Mayesh. These were a new introduction, I think, recently, and they are the most perfect shade of terracotta I've ever seen. They're absolutely lovely. You can get them with really long stems. They're nice and hardy, but they still have a lovely fluid shape to them. They open up to be huge, and that scale is something that you really want to think about when you're working in an urn, as it is a large vessel. So you want to choose flowers that are going to take up space for you so that you're getting the most bang for your buck in terms of product. Now, one of the things that I like to do in all of our designing is to use the same color tones, but use them through different types of flowers. So these are beautiful Lynette chrysanthemums. And then I have this lovely Lisianthus as well. We're also using these beautiful Sahara Sensation single roses, as well as Sahara Sensation spray roses. And then we've got these beautiful mocha sprays, Blue Moon spray rose, as well as Country Blue rose. So you can see how similar the shades of this are. And what that does is that you're able to use one as a focal, and then you have the texture of the spray to kind of pull the color through into the rest of your design. Another way that we'll do that is also picking up that color in one of our filler flowers. This is Shark's Bay Boronia, a beautiful local flower that's been grown. We're also getting some of those mauve tones in our flowering jasmine, which starts out this beautiful pink and then opens to a lovely white flower. And then we're pulling in that mauve again with our lovely lavender mauvey ranunculus. We're really not using a whole lot of foliage in this, mostly some ferns, some springeri, and then I do have this lovely filler, the Genestra, which just has a beautiful, delicate beauty to it. So today I want to show you guys how I design my urns. And to be fair, this is my smallest size of urns, but it's a good starter size. You may be used to designing it with this kind of a turntable, but when you're working on an urn, you still want to be designing in the round. So you're going to want something nice and big, like this giant turntable that I have here, and I just got it off of Amazon. When I'm designing an urn, what I like to do in the same way as when I'm designing a centerpiece is kind of start with my form and structure first. So I'm always going to want to have something that's hanging down, giving it a really natural look. And you could certainly, like we discussed before, be designing this in water. You just need to make sure that you have really long stems if you're doing that, because they're going to need to come up and out of the urn more. This jasmine smells so incredible. I wish you guys could smell it. So what I like to do first is kind of go in with what my structure is going to be. And the way that I'll do that is kind of where I'm going to end up down here, and then also what the highest point is going to be, and then I kind of fill in from there. So I'm going to take these super long Moab roses, which are perfect for designing in an urn because they're so beautifully tall. And I'm going to place them to kind of get the height that I want. Now I'm working for this design in a kind of very organic look. It's not going to be a tight kind of ball or anything. And I often, even in an urn, as you may kind of go through and do a U shape in your centerpieces, I'll do the same with an urn as well. So these Moabs here are really the star of the show because they just have that wonderful height and that really big size. And I'm going to continue to kind of set them in and find my structure. Now I've left a lot of the greenery onto these because I want that to be part of the foliage of my piece. It just kind of helps you in not having to use as much greenery. After we get some Moabs in, we're going to go in with some Genestra. Now what I'll do a lot of times with this is cut the center out of it so that I can use that down low for coverage. And then this other piece can be a taller piece that I use. And like that, we're getting our structure defined. Genestra is nice too because it's so drapey. You can really, it kind of has a light and airy feel to it. And then again, I'm going to take that piece that I cut off and use that deep. So in this way, you're just going to start working in all of your different elements. And again, with the Lisianthus, you get so many pieces on one stem. You can cut the centers out and use that down in front, and then go ahead and pull that flower through in your design in another area. And as you're working, you're always going to want to be turning your arrangement so that you're not getting one side done and then going in and doing the other side, because you might get unbalanced working in that manner. The other part to remember is that your urns can be one-sided. For instance, if they're going up against a wall, you can just do one side. The back you should fill in with foliage for sure, and sometimes some less expensive flowers. And you can have them one-sided even if they're on the end of an aisle, but you're going to want to be sure to fill in with some flowers because your photographer is always going to get the back of your arrangements. Just rest assured that's going to happen. So you're going to continue working on it, making sure you're turning it as you're working, until before you know it, you're going to have your finished urn. And there you go, our urn's complete. I just want to thank you guys for joining me today as we gave you this urn demonstration. I think it's really fun to work in large-scale arrangements. Those are actually my favorite kinds to do. A huge thank you to Mayish for providing us with these absolutely spectacular flowers to work with. There's nothing that elevates your design as much as amazing product, and you should always seek out the best that you can get. I want to thank you also to West Coast Weddings for doing our filming, Cavalier Bars and Backdrops, and Behind the Scenes Wedding Edition for our behind the scenes.